Are you plagued by doubts? You're not so sure of yourself. You don't think so highly about yourself. Somehow you feel like you can't do things, or you're being held back in some way. If this describes you, your inner critic is a problem. In this video, we're going to have a look at what causes the inner critic, how it holds you back, and how you can fix it for good. So let's take a look. What exactly is the inner critic and how does it hold us back? Well, basically the inner critic is the small critical voice that says you can't do it. You're not good enough. You're not worthy. That's the basic what the inner critic is, okay? How does this hold us back? Well, obviously it holds us back by making us feel that we can't achieve things. And if we want to achieve anything in life, we have to overcome this inner criticism. But to overcome the inner criticism, we first of all have to understand what has created this inner criticism in the first place. And what has created this inner criticism is basically how the mind is developed, all right? Basically, your mind is developed within the first 7 or 8 years of life. Initially, we have what's called the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Now, the conscious mind, of course, is your ego who's sitting here watching this video. But you also have the subconscious mind. And what does the subconscious mind do? Well, the subconscious mind houses things like your memories. It stores your feelings that you're not aware of. And many thoughts and thinking processes that are not aware of are also there. The ego is the person who chooses what to do. The subconscious mind is by and large a doer. There's no ego in the subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is actually a slave, as it were. You are actually the master and it is the servant, in theory at least. But what has gone wrong? Why is it that we're having so many problems with our subconscious mind? And this largely comes down to the evolutionary processes of human beings. So how humans work effectively is that when we're a young child, there is no clear-cut division between the conscious and the subconscious mind. So the subconscious mind is looking after things like breathing, heart rate. When you're asleep, it stores all your memories, it stores all your feelings and your judgments. And it also stores things called subpersonalities. They're like little mini versions of you. There was a movie in 2015, I think it might be called Inside Out, something like that, where it's talking about a girl, cartoon movie. A girl is 12 years of age. She goes to San Francisco, has a bit of a mental breakdown, and you see from inside the subpersonalities in her head. It's really good film from the point of view of getting that insight. So effectively what happens in those first few years of your life, your conscious and subconscious is all intermixed. And so initially the subconscious is dominating. So remember, the subconscious is looking after things like the heart rate, the breathing and so on. It also houses our memories. If you take, for example, hypnotists, hypnotists can put you into a state of hypnosis, and you can ask what happened on the 5th of April 2012, and you'll just, boom, you'll tell them what happened on the 5th of April in your life 2012. So your subconscious mind is recording everything. You're just not aware of it. And the subconscious mind has all this background stuff, okay? So over a period of time, the conscious mind starts developing. We start becoming more aware of what I want, what I need, and we go to different processes of development as we mature. And around the age of 7 or 8, we say a person has reached the age of reason. And the age of reason is the state or time when the person is consciously thinking. So up to then, people like 4 or 5-year-old kids, for example, they do a lot of things not really aware of what they're doing. They can be very naughty without thinking about it, okay? They're kind of wild. Anybody who has like 5-year-old kids, 6-year-old kids will say they're kind of wild, okay? But by around 3rd or 4th grade, around 7 or 8 years of age, you start settling down a bit. Now, here's the thing, is that your subconscious mind is programmed, okay? So ideally, the way it seems to be is that you, the doer, you, the conscious self, tell the subconscious mind what you want, and you train the subconscious mind in to do things. And then the subconscious mind, whether you're asleep or you're awake, your subconscious mind does the work and makes these things happen. That's the way it's supposed to be. And it works like this sometimes. I'm always fascinated in science, like the periodic table. I think it was Mendeleev came up, they had a dream of drawers, and that gave him the image of the periodic table. We also have Bohr. He was sleeping or in a semi-sleep state, and he saw little like little stars going around in circles and rising up and down, and that gave him the idea that a electron will get a certain charge and it'll bounce up to the next level or table in the structure of the atom. So these are examples of people using the subconscious mind the way it's supposed to be. And it's pretty simple to make your subconscious mind do things. You immerse yourself in something that all your thoughts, all your feelings, all your judgments, all your worldview is just about that thing you're thinking about. And then when you're sleeping, subconscious mind will do work. We've all had it whereby, say you're doing a lot of maths problems, for example, or work problems, and then your study problems. And then at nighttime, you'll be dreaming about that project or dreaming about those math symbols or whatever it was, So our mind can work for us while we're asleep, and that's the ideal way. But the problem is that in the first few years of life, you don't actually have a conscious mind. So you're like blotting paper, taking in everything that's thrown your way. You just accept everything that's thrown your way. So the image we might have is that as a young child, it's like an empty cup, and everything goes in, we accept everything. And that means what our parents say, what our teachers say, what the neighbors say, our grandparents, what's on the TV, what's on the news, what are people talking about on the street. You're just absorbing all the time, okay? There's a nice way of thinking about this. There's a form of psychotherapy called Gestalt therapy, Gestalt, should I say, Gestalt. And Gestalt therapy suggests that what happens in childhood is we get things called introjects, I-N-T or O-J-E-C-T-S. An introject is whereby rather than the child having to learn everything, the child will simply observe the parents, and whole chunks of programming will just be imbibed, okay? So daddy's always angry, and then at some stage, anger is imbibed, and that child becomes like angry daddy. We all see this, okay? Young child, they do something, and next thing they say or do something which is just like their mom or just like their dad or just like a character on TV or whatever it is. So the child, it's a fantastic way of learning rapidly, is a child that absorbs whatever is coming their way. That's repeatedly thrown at them, okay? It's called introjects or interjection. So it's not that we even have to teach our kids. So you could be teaching your kids a certain way of living their life, but they're also affected, and I think any parent will realize this, they're affected by things like the environment, what other kids are doing in their class, what other people are doing in society. These all have an effect on the kids, and it's very obvious that if you look at studies of children raised in very poor ghetto communities versus kids raised in very wealthy communities, or kids raised in middle-class communities, that the kids raised in middle-class communities and raised in wealthy communities tend to fare much better in everything from physical health to emotional mental well-being to income. They do a lot better than a kid raised in a ghetto. Now, of course, some kids will escape the ghetto, of course, and some kids from middle-class or wealthy backgrounds will end up going and doing very badly, of course. But in general, the environment has a huge impact. And so kids who are in a very negative environment, where everybody's in a very negative state of mind, they're picking up those introjects, okay? Same thing if you were raised in a very rich family and your dad and your mom were maybe millionaire business people, there's a pretty good chance that you start by interjection, not even that they actually sat down and spent some time talking to you, but it's almost like by osmosis, you start picking up that millionaire mindset, okay? Not in every case, but by and large. So the problem is those first 7 or 8 years, and eventually we cover that layer and it becomes less permeable, okay? Maybe not totally impermeable, but less permeable, we cover that layer. And so a stage comes. So if I turn around to, say, a 3-year-old, I can say to a 3-year-old, you're naughty, you're bad, you're bold, and they'll believe me. But if I talk to the same kid when they're 8 years of age, they'll look at me and think about it. And they'll probably go to mom and dad and say, he says I'm naughty. See, they're starting to think. And the starting to think process gives us the power to choose what we accept and don't accept. But the problem is you've already got 7 or 8 years of programming. 7 or 8 years of 24 hours a day, whatever's on TV, whatever's on the radio, whatever the neighbors are saying, whatever your parents are saying, even when you're a small baby in that basket semi-sleeping, you're hearing the conversations of the people around you. You're hearing their thoughts, their feelings. You're picking up on so many different levels. And in a way, a small baby is picking up in ways that we wouldn't be picking up. In a very direct way, they're picking up on the atmosphere, on the mental vibration of those people, okay? So this is the problem. You're programmed at an early age, and this is when the inner critic comes along. Because by and large, you look at the world is a pretty negative place. And I almost see it as like kind of like a virus that keeps going around, but it's a mind virus. The mind virus of very negative thoughts and feelings, okay? So often you'll have grandma and granddad say a lot of negative things. And then the parents, they pick up on that and they say negative things. And then the kids are programmed by their parents and then they say to their kids. And for multi-generations, you have people being very negative, okay? So a lot of what people are doing out there in daily life is they're very negative and stuck in their ways and all of this sort of stuff. And we have to try and break away from that. And the problem is that your inner critic is also developed. And so what's the inner critic? The inner critic is a sub-personality. It's an amazing thing in the human mind, okay? If you get a chance to watch, I think a very good film to watch is Tron Legacy, I think it was called. It was a movie from maybe 2011, and there's an original Tron movie maybe 20, 30 years ago. And Tron Legacy is this idea of a computer programmer goes into a kind of virtual world and stuff. And, you know, it's not everybody's cup of tea. I like science fiction movies. I like it a lot. But there's a scene in Tron Legacy where the big problem he has is the guy who's, the guy called Flynn is, he decides to get a helper, virtual helper to help him. So he puts his hand against a kind of a sheet of glass or something in the thing. And next thing on the other side of the glass, there's a clone of him, okay? So he creates this guy called Clue, which is exactly him, but it's not him. It's a little virtual helper. And he ends up being a big problem because the Clue character is super perfectionistic, and then the whole problem he has, he tries to kill loads of people because he's perfectionistic. And what I thought was very good as an explanation or an analogy to the critic is that you can create sub-personalities. Sub-personalities are created in your subconscious mind all the time. And when a sub-personality is created, it never seems to die. It's there for as long as a person's alive. That sub-personality is there in the background in your mind. And just like that Clue character, they could be very badly programmed. So our inner critic is like that. Our inner critic is too perfectionistic because the big problem we have as human beings is a tendency to be into judgmentalism. So we've got the head and the heart. The way we're designed as human beings is this is supposed to work out, how to light a fire, how to hunt an animal, how to grow some vegetables, how to run a business, how to create an empire, how to explore space. This is all up here. But down here is, the real decision maker. In Chinese medicine, for example, the heart is actually the mind, okay? So this is just a calculating machine. And here is the bit that has empathy and emotional depth and all of this stuff. And the problem is in our societies, we tend to be stuck up here where we're just, without any compassion, without any empathy, judging everything that comes our way. So the problem is that when you have a sub-personality, you can't get rid of it. And these sub-personalities, in the case of the inner critic, we have many sub-personalities, but the inner critic sub-personality is that it's critical and it's thinking from here, it's judging all the time, it's not coming from here. Now, you might think, why do we develop, and every single person on the planet has an inner critic of some sort. Now, in some people's case, the inner critic is directed outwards and they never criticize themselves. They judge the crap out of everybody else. That's still the inner critic. It's just the inner critic projecting outwards. Possibly that the person's so critical they can't stand their own criticism and they learn at an early age to project it outwards. And these are the sort of people who never take responsibility and blame everybody for everything. Still the goddamn inner critic, but now it's projected outwards. The inner critic actually has a use, and it's called conscience, okay? Which is doing the right thing. So a small child, you want the child to grab the other kid's pen, and your teacher says, don't do that. How would you feel if he did that to you? And you start thinking, oh, I shouldn't do that. That'd be really bad. And this goes repeatedly over and over and over again. And this is why we have different levels of inner critic. So you have some kids who are very, 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 very lax. They have very strong conscience and they'll never do anything wrong. And you have other kids who are very lax. If you were to if you were maybe the son of some kind of crime lord or something, you saw all sorts of crimes in front of you, your inner critic might be, what you think, or your conscience, so to say, might not be all that well developed, and you mightn't really think much is bad, and you're okay with all sorts of things going on. And then another person could be very, very perfectionist. The level of conscientiousness of people will vary from person to person. It's arbitrary. As anything in the mind is arbitrary because it depends upon your programming, okay? And every human being, 7 points, I know it was like over 7.5 billion at this time, people are programmed. Each person is slightly different programming. But also the inner critic will be different for different people. So you've got conscience at one side and the inner critic at the other side. And depending upon how you are, the inner critic will either be quite strong or not so strong. And it doesn't really matter if you're like a really good person or a really bad person. There's really good people who have a conscience that really drives them crazy with the inner critic. And there's people who doing all sorts of terrible things and they don't have much of the criticism. So it varies an awful lot. But the problem from our point of view, from psychological well-being, is that inner criticism holds us back because it tends to say I'm bad, I'm not good, I'm a waster, and it stops us from achieving things. That's basically where the inner criticism comes from. How do we cure the inner critic is actually simpler than you think. And it's basically what I'd like to call like weeding a garden, okay? So you've got all these weeds in your garden and you have to go out and weed them. As you know, if you've got a garden, you have to weed every day, weeding, and eventually you get rid of many of them, and then now and again the odd will pop up, you can do it again. So there's two main thoughts that you're going to get with the inner critic. One is a judgment that's genuine. You've actually got an objective problem and then a judgment about it, okay? And the second type is just a judgment against yourself with no bearing at all. So for example, things like, I'm not good at maths, I'm a loser. Well, it's right, I'm not good at maths, but then the loser's judgment. Another version might be, I don't know how to make friends, I'm a loser. Well, you're right, you don't know how to make friends, but then I'm a loser is a judgment. A very simple one is, I missed the bus, I'm an idiot. Okay, we all do this, don't we? I'm such an idiot. Why are you an idiot because you missed the bus? You're not an idiot because you missed the bus. You were a person who made a bad choice about your timing. You were too late out of bed, or the bus was too early. There's various reasons why you missed the bus, but it's not that you're an idiot. It's that you made a mistake in your judgment, okay? So that's the first kind, and this one is relatively easy to fix, okay? So what you simply do, a lot of what I advocate in this channel is using diaries and workbooks. So if you just get a workbook out for this, okay, or if you shoot the paper, try it every day. And you try and see yourself doing it in real time, okay? So you do something where you're criticizing yourself and then you catch it. And often at first you'll catch it later. So you might have to look at the end of the day and recap the day and see, was I critical anywhere in the day? And you will find examples. And after a while, if you keep doing that, you'll start noticing as you've done it, but you're a bit too late. And if you keep doing it, you'll actually start noticing just as you're about to do it, and you can actually stop yourself. But that might take you a while. All you have to do is you write down a notebook. For example, I missed the bus, I'm an idiot. And just write down below it, I missed the bus, I made an error of judgment. Next sentence, I will try not to miss the bus again by doing X, Y, and Z. So you just keep doing that for every single negative thought you do each day, okay? So I advocate a lot of diary writing in this channel, and I think you get into the habit of your diary, just if you want to get rid of critical thoughts, just as well as any diary entries you make that day, just make a couple of, did I make any critical thoughts? And what way was I criticizing myself? And just write them like that, okay? So I don't know how to talk to people in public. I'm an idiot. I'm a stupid person. I'm a loser. Nobody loves me. I don't know how to get romantic partners. I'm a loser. Nobody loves me. I don't know. I'm going to rewrite that. I don't know how to talk to get a romantic partner. I obviously lack the techniques. I'm going to study the techniques. And I'm going to try and do better next time. Okay. So you're just trying to dump the judgment. Okay. Now the second type, only two types, second type of inner criticism is something like, I'm ugly. I'm stupid. I'm bad. Okay. No rational reason at all, okay? We get this a lot, for example, some people, probably more girls than boys, they look in the mirror and say, I'm ugly. Nobody can like me. Well, first of all, how do you know you're ugly? Okay, that's a pretty big judgment. Secondly, nobody loves me. That's another very, very big judgment, okay? So this one is worse. It's more difficult to deal with because there isn't a logical reason behind it. You just don't like yourself. And this is really when the inner critic is kind of ramped up too high and the person really is totally disliking themselves, okay? A case of dislike. So what you have to do in that case is say things like, I'm ugly, nobody loves me. And then write down, I think I'm ugly and I feel nobody loves me. But I'm trying every day to accept myself more as I am and to realize that I am lovable. Now see, with the technique here, we're not taking a full frontal approach. We're not saying it's a stupid thought or bad thought, none of this, because see, you can say to me that you don't like yourself. And I say, but you're very lovable. You won't believe it, okay? I used to work in sales, and a very good adage that one of the sales teachers told me many years ago was that if I say it, you won't think it's so. If you say it, you'll think it's so. So the key of sales is to get the prospect to agree with you, but they say it. They think they made the decision, okay? So if I try and tell you to change your ways, you won't believe me. But if you tell yourself to change your ways, you will. So the same thing, your thought is like that. You can't directly fight your thought, but you agree with the thought and then you deconstruct the thought back to, it's only a feeling, it's only a thought, it's where I feel now, working on accepting myself, that kind of thing. So you try those two exercises, okay? So for the ones with a reason, you write it down, then you take out the judgment and you rewrite it about how you're improving it. For the one that's just a judgment and there's no objective reality behind it, it's not like you're bad at something, there's no proof that nobody likes you or nobody will listen to you or nobody will want to be with you or whatever it is, but it's just you just feel like you can't do it. Like, I could never speak in public. Why? I don't know, I just feel I can't do it. That's an example of that one. Then it's like, I think that I can't speak in public. That's how I think right now, but I'm working on it. And day by day, I'm learning to accept myself more and more. And auto-suggestion and positive mind feed can help with this. There are videos I have on auto-suggestion. And auto-suggestion, use positive suggestion like every day and everywhere and getting better and better. And then over time, you work on mind feed, which is that you keep on reading good books, watching good videos, and you keep weeding the thoughts out, and you keep using the auto-suggestion. And after a while, you don't even have to do much weeding, and you don't have to do a lot of auto-suggestion because your mind resets and the inner critic comes smaller and smaller. Now, the bad news is you can't kill the inner critic because once a subpersonality is created, you can't get rid of it. But you can reduce its size. It becomes what we call the barking of dogs. There's something in the distance back there. So that's what we have to do. We have to put the inner critic back in its box. It has a role to play. It's not a bad thing at times to have a little inner critic saying, maybe I'm not so good, maybe I could do better. That's not a bad thing. But when it becomes too big and too powerful, it's like the tail wagging the dog, and then it holds us back. So this is what I suggest for you today to do, is try those exercises. Realize that the inner critic is a subpersonality, a flip side of conscientiousness or conscience, and it has its role to play, but it shouldn't be dominating. And if you want to be a success, if you want to be happy, you really, really have to get your inner critic, back in its box. And there's many videos in this channel which will help you with dealing with negative thoughts and feelings and learn to be more positive and upbeat. Because one thing's for sure, whatever you want to achieve in life, you're going to achieve that by having confidence in yourself and being able to visualize what you want to achieve and not being held back by petty fears and petty negative thoughts, okay? So hope that helps. Please like and subscribe. I'll talk to you next time.